Okay, we will now call the August 23rd, 2021 Board of Trustees regular meeting to order. Entertain a motion for the adoption of the agenda.
I would like to move for I'd like to add an item to the agenda. First, I'd like to move to add agenda, an executive session item for the receipt of legal advice pertaining to policy ADD, and suggest we add that before 2A.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Properly moving second. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote electronically.
She may not be.
Joyce, are you logged in or do you need to cast your vote?
I'm logged in. I don't see the option to vote, but I am logged in.
Here.
Okay, thank you. It just popped up. Ms. Green? How do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I move for approval of the agenda.
Hang on one second.
I'm sorry, my bad.
All right, now the motion passes. Entertain a motion for approval of the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Properly moving seconded. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote electronically. Ms. Green, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, that motion passes. Entertain a motion to convene into executive session.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, I know by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposers? At this time now, we will be entering into executive session. Those of you that are not a part of executive session, I know that you just came in visitors, but we're going to ask that you please excuse yourself at this time as we're about to go into executive session. will now reconvene into open session. Ask that you please pause for a moment of silence. Ask that you now please stand for pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty.
Okay, item 4A, out of county transfer request. Is there a
I
motion?
move that we allow the students to remain for the 2021-22 school year and waive tuition for this year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Dr. Frazier. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Ms. Green, how do you vote? Ms. Green, how do you vote? Is Ms. Green on, Megan?
Yes, sir. I don't see there's a camera frame. I believe she is up there.
Ms. Green, can you unmute your phone? Okay, just let the record reflect Ms. Green was not present to vote. So that motion passes. Item 4B, out of county transfer
I
request.
move we approve for the student to remain for the 2021-22 school year and waive tuition.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Waters. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Ms. Green, are you back on? Okay. Let the record reflect Ms. Green was not present to vote. That motion passes. Item 4C, foreign exchange student requests.
Move for approval. Second.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Waters. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Ms. Green, how do you vote on item 4C? Ms. Green, you're on mute. How do you vote? Okay. Ms. Green, can you hear me?
Yes,
How do you vote?
yes.
Okay. That motion passes. Item 4D, homeschool application.
Move for approval. Second.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Dr. Frazier. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Ms. Green, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, that motion passes. Item 4E, student transfer appeal.
I move that we deny these requests.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Dr. Frazier. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Ms. Green, how do you vote?
yes,
That motion passes. Item 4F, out-of-county transfer request.
I move that we allow the student to remain for the 2021-22 school year and waive tuition.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Coates. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Ms. Green, how do you vote?
yes,
Thank you. Ms. Darby?
Yep.
Okay, that motion passes. Item 4G, foreign exchange student requests.
Move for approval.
Moved by Ms. Darby, second by Dr. Frazier. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote. Ms. Green, how do you vote?
yes,
Thank you. That motion passes. Item 5A is public comments will be conducted by Vice Chair Waters.
Thank you, Reverend Mack. As we prepare to go into public comments, I just want to remind everyone. Thank you. Mr. Reidenbach, are you going to bring another or will it, can you come?
Only 4 in the room.
Okay.
Everybody else we brought in separately.
Okay, thank you. So but as we come, I just want to remind everyone that in doing this in accordance with policy BEDH, we will have public comments last for about 30 minutes, not about, but for 30 minutes. And we divide the time evenly between the number of participants. So today we will be doing public comments for 1 minute each. We will ask that you come in an orderly and respectable manner in accordance with policy BDEH. And if that is not observed, we will ask you to step down. So as we get started, the first person coming will be discussing ESSER funds. That is Ms. Tara Plummer.
I'm actually speaking on behalf of Claudia Rivas that tried to sign up to speak. So I'm going to read her. She took the time to write this, so this is what I'm doing.
Thank you.
Okay. I am here today to express my concern and discontent about the lack of access to classroom instruction for healthy children who are quarantined. I am the mother of an 8th grade daughter who attends Lane Middle School and a 9th grade son who attends Lucy Beckham High School. It is beyond my comprehension to deny classroom instruction to these children when the technology is available, especially when my middle school attends one of the top STEM schools in the nation. Our STEM schools should be leading the way during this pandemic. Instead, CCSD is choosing not to. According to the ACLU, the Bill of Rights apply to children, and all children have a right to education. You are depriving children of an education based on an unwarranted forced quarantine. Okay, so I just want to say, I hope everyone knows, I think it is unconstitutional to deny these children, whether they've been vaccinated or not vaccinated, an education.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next person we will have is Nick Ireland.
Thought I had 2 minutes, so I'm gonna have to bring it down to 1. Give me 1 second.
Sir, the timer has started.
I'm here representing my 8-year-old and 5-year-old sons who are now required to wear face masks in school 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, plus time on the hot school bus. I am outraged and disgusted that you're lying to the citizens of this great city and to the people that pay your salaries. I'm also disgusted and not shocked that you cowards called a last-minute special session on the night of Meet the Teacher last Monday night to pass this idiotic illegal mandate. You say masks are in the best interest and safety of our children. You're dead wrong. Our kids are the most resilient of us all. Masks carry disgusting pathogens, create anxiety, and affect children's ability to learn critical social skills needed for proper development. I asked my brand new kindergartner a question last Wednesday evening on the first day of school. I asked him, what was the first thing you did when you walked into class today, buddy? He said, I had a big smile on my face, Daddy. Too bad the poor kid's mask was in the way to cover up his handsome smile and friendly demeanor thanks to this board's cowardly decision. This is not about the health and safety of our children. This is about control. I don't trust this board to make decisions on what's best for my children. You do not represent me. You represent all that is wrong with our faltering society today. I, for one, have had it and will not sit on the sidelines any longer. We will raise our children in the way we see
Thank you,
fit. This is
sir.
not New York or LA or Chicago. This is the great
Sir,
city
the
of
timer
Charleston.
has gone
We will
off.
stand and fight for freedom and liberty, and no sham school board members are going to stand in our way.
Please stand
I
down,
implore
sir.
every single member of the school board except Cindy Coates, thank you for voting no. to
Can you all
reconsider
escort this
mandate for the
gentleman
sake
away?
of our freedom and our child's future. Consider yourselves in the hot seat moving forward. We're coming for your
Can
board
somebody
position to
please-
fix this mess.
The next speaker that we will have will be Gabrielle Sloan.
Show up to my Sunday morning service and I'll tell you.
Stand strong, everybody stand strong, speak up. Stand.
My name is Gabby Sloan. I'm here to speak against the mask mandates on behalf of the parents who are working and don't have time, children that don't have a voice, and teachers that are scared of losing their jobs. I am a current CCSD teacher who has been told not to report to work because I do not agree with this mandate. So yes, my special education children are currently without a teacher because my administration will not allow me to enter the building. I really want to make it clear that this has not been easy for me. I am obviously here putting my job on the line. I have devoted time, money, and my life to getting an education so I can be a teacher and serve the children. Every day I show up to work knowing and loving my responsibility to help children learn and achieve their potential. The decision to wear a mask should be up to the individual and the family. You have the right to choose what is best for yourself and for your family. If you want to wear a mask, wear one. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't. You should not be forced to. Same is true for the vaccine.
Thank you.
I am saying freedom for all, and you are taking away my freedom.
Thank you,
That
ma'am.
is the difference. In closing, I pray that you open your ears and hear this mandate. I pray that you let me do my job.
The next one we have on the list is AJ Davis.
Michael.
Good evening. I'm AJ Davis. I'm an employee of Charleston County School District, community representative, and parent. Last week, this board took on the responsibility of hosting an emergency meeting and decided to put in place a temporary mask mandate. Those of us who work inside our CCSD schools who have been enduring this pandemic and the tumultuous environment that comes with it, appreciate you for that. I stand before you to say, while I understand that this decision was definitely one that came with a lot of hardship, there's a tremendous number of people in our community, parents, guardians, grandparents, who appreciate your courage and bravery in doing so. And despite the opposition to this, those of us who sit in the halls and sit in the classrooms of these buildings appreciate your efforts, and we thank you for that.
Thank you. Mr. Ridenbach. Okay, next we will have Carissa Nicole. Who's outside? Yes. Okay. Oh, so you know what? You're welcome to just have them come in the order they're in then. Okay. As you come, please state your name.
Hi, my name is Carissa Nickel. Thank you for letting us address you today. I'm here, I'm talking about the ESSER funds that you're going through to approve. One thing that I saw in there that you were gonna, I hope that you're gonna fully fund our buses. There's parents reporting buses without AC, children sitting 3 to a seat in the aisles of the floors. I don't know how we can go back and say, all we care about is these masks on our face when there's children that are not being safely transported to and from schools. You have the ability to use these funds to fix this. This has been an ongoing issue for 10 plus years. The buses need to be fixed. People need to feel safe putting their kids on there. The other thing I would like to speak on is the SEL, the social emotional learning. Personally, teachers are not psychotherapists. They're not trained in that manner. We don't need to bring this to our classroom.
Thank you. As you come, please state your name.
April Coleman. Good afternoon. My name is April Coleman, and I'm a parent with 3 kids at CCSD schools. My son is a senior on the Wando football team. Like many other student athletes, he was quarantined along with his entire team. There was no contact tracing performed. My son was not near the player with COVID, and he never got sick. The South Carolina DHEC COVID guidelines for K through 12 schools offer a reduced quarantine time that lets kids come back after a week. Why are we not following these guidelines? CCSD has developed policies that keep our healthy kids out of school and sports and deprives them of an equal education, equal access to education. These policies are unconstitutional and discriminatory. There is no virtual instruction for these quarantine students. What about the kids that are already struggling? What about the students in high-level classes? Worksheets and checking assignments on Canvas is not going to cut it. I fear many kids won't be able to academically recover from this poorly planned policies by CCSD. All we are asking is that their kids are sick, let them stay home. If they are not sick, let them come to school and at least turn on the classroom WebEx and let students tune into class if they're homesick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As you come, please state your name.
Eric Rothwell. There's no question that the COVID pandemic has disrupted the lives of everyone here. However, I believe that the best interest in our children's physical, mental, and emotional well-being is no longer being considered, and that this authoritarian power grab is becoming prevalent throughout, including in our schools. I am standing here before you today to discuss 2 topics. One, you don't have a contact tracing program for student athletes. You are punishing kids on a team of 85 without any reason to do so. And when you do that, you send them home with no online resources to help them out. You had that before last year. There's no reason not to have it this year. I don't understand. I'm in IT. I'm more than willing to help the school set it up if they need the help with it. But to tell our honors AP students and all students they are on their own is a shame, and that needs to change. I would like to see the contact tracing posted and the virtual learning reinstated. Thank you.
Thank you. As you come, please state your name.
My name is Ben Henderson. I'm a junior at Lucy Beckham High School, and I'm here today speaking about my experiences with the current policy of the school board and how these decisions are negatively affecting so many students in the county. COVID is not killing healthy kids, first off. I'm not vaccinated and I'm sorry,
Yes, speaking to the mic.
And because of that, because I was not vaccinated, I was prohibited from going to school, even though I was fully healthy. There's no online instruction offered, which makes it nearly impossible to keep up with classes, as we've noticed, interactive teachers or anything like that. Junior year is incredibly important. As I said, I am a junior. As you know, college attendance, class participation, and GPA are imperative this year for college-bound students. I take my education very seriously. Currently, I'm taking multiple AP classes, as are many of my classmates. Attendance is necessary for any students to succeed, regardless of which classes they're taking or what grade they are in. I'm speaking about my situation, but it applies to all students everywhere. It's unconstitutional to deny any student education for any reason. Finally, the board's policy, which quarantines healthy children, is not based on any proven studies.
Thank you. Please state your name as you come.
Teddy Manis.
Thank you.
I'm just here to ask y'all to reconsider the blanket quarantine for contact sports in Charleston County. My son is a ninth grader at Lucy Beckham. He plays football. He, as I'm sure y'all heard, with about 60 other students, missed their first week of high school because of a blanket quarantine. My understanding from the staff and principal administrations at Lucy Beckham is that there was no contact tracing, that the policy simply is if one person is positive with COVID, all 80 kids or however many people on that team have to quarantine. I think that's a selective policy that, if you really look at it, doesn't have a whole lot of logic. You could take that to the extreme with any other club that does the same thing, and it seems to single out football, basketball, lacrosse with no real medical reason for doing so. So I ask y'all to think about that policy and change it where it makes more sense. Thank you very much.
Please state your name.
My name is Mary Toko, and I'm here to talk about quarantining healthy children. I do not believe that quarantining healthy children who are non-symptomatic from attending school is, I believe it's a form of discrimination, a violation, and bullying. Children develop a robust immune system by being exposed to immunity in the process of being exposed. So quarantining them is completely unacceptable. Also, they are talking about approving the Pfizer vaccine. Just so you know, Janet Woodstock is currently the head of the FDA, and prior to that, she was the person responsible for approving the catastrophic medical regulatory failure when she approved Oxycontin, oxycodone, and fentanyl. Those drugs have now killed hundreds of thousands of people and have started an epidemic in this country. And now she's going to be the one approving the Pfizer clot jab. They call it the clot shot. I don't think so. If you think you're going to force our children to take that, you're crazy. We're not going to do it. It will bring out full-blown rebellion. The FDA can no longer be trusted. And by the way, I consider her a big prostitute for big pharma.
Thank you.
Bought and paid for. No to the COVID jam.
Thank you. Please state your name.
My name is Parker Hoover.
Sir, could you say it one more time?
My name is Parker Hoover.
Thank you.
I go to East Cooper Montessori. When I wore a mask, it was really hard to breathe, so I didn't want to wear a mask anymore. When I'm in school, I usually get a lot of migraines. So wearing a mask was harder for me to do. On the whiteboard at school, it said, "You may sit wherever you'd like." So I sat at a table, and then the teacher came over and told me to go sit behind plexiglass. And I just didn't want to, so I wouldn't. They can't make us not breathe oxygen. God put oxygen in the world for us to breathe, not to be afraid of.
Thank you. Thank you. Your name?
I'm Amber Hoover.
Okay.
I'm here to ask that you honor our children's rights to an education without a covering over their faces. We've been here before. We wore your masks for an entire school year, yet here we are again. How are we to believe that it's only until October 15th when we were told almost 2 years ago that it would only be 2 weeks to slow the spread? I'll be honest, before COVID-19, I was asleep in so many ways. I knew very little about your boards and meetings and our rights as constituents within Charleston County and our state. But my eyes are open and I'm learning more and more about how to protect our children against your governmental overreach. Parents should choose what's best for their children. No one wants to talk about the significant harms associated with masks and children. Emotional development harms, infections on their faces, and medical harms. My 9-year-old never had a migraine before wearing a mask all day in school. The board's priorities are for serving all CCSD students well. What about our kids that don't do well in masks? Don't they count? Stick to what you know, math, reading, science, and leave the rest to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please state your name.
Lynn Van Teen.
Could you say one more time?
Lynn Van Teen.
Thank you.
Go ahead. As I listen to the anti-mask protesters outside, many seem to have zero respect for government employees, board members, healthcare workers, teachers, and school staff. They are using pseudoscience, conspiracy theories, and blatant lies to support their anti-mask platform. The majority of Americans, 63%, support masks in school. Parents should not have to fight so hard to keep our kids safe, especially those of us with immune-compromised children. We want to stay face-to-face. Our children deserve the chance to do that, but it can only happen if we, the adults, ensure that it is safe to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name.
My name is Lindsay Piper Loomis, and what you're doing is trying to enslave our children and adults into slavery. But really where the real slavery is happening is at the border, but you don't talk about that, do you? You
Ma'am, could you
hypocrites.
please stay on the topic of the school district?
I am. I'm talking about it. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. You don't get to dictate my constitutional right. I'm talking about the masks. You hypocrites, Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you, for he wrote, "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Their worship is a farce, for they teach man-made ideas as commands from God. For you ignore God's law and substitute your own tradition." Sound familiar? Absolutely. But let me tell you something. What comes from your heart is absolutely vile and evil. What you need to do is stand up for these children. Governor McMaster said, we have a choice as parents, and anything that is substitute of that is not the law. You are breaking the law, and if you're not standing up for the children and the parents in this district, you are complicit in a criminal act. You are hypocrites. So get ready, because we will make sure that you guys all are replaced.
Thank you.
Please state your name.
Samantha Bovers.
Thank you.
Oh, excuse me, came right from school, had the backpack. Is there a timer that I can look at?
Yes, on the screen, it's starting.
Y'all think I can see that far? That's fun. Okay, thank you. My name is Samantha Bovers, and the views expressed here are my own as a parent. My son, who is 4 and has an IEP for autism, attends Springfield Elementary. Today was his first day of CD blend regular ed. Instead of feeling joy, the only thing I felt this morning was heart-rending fear, as my 4-year-old baby, unable to be vaccinated and at higher risk for COVID, entered a classroom where some of his peers did not wear a mask. This was through no fault of his school's excellent staff, but because of directives given by this superintendent's office to principals that stand in direct opposition to the mask requirement. This requirement is not being enforced, and you are allowing this. Therefore, special needs families like mine continue to face an agonizing choice: send our kids to school and expose them to potential illness and death due to COVID, or keep them at home where they will receive a fraction of their required IEP services. Either of these horrible outcomes are a violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and both are completely avoidable if you require the superintendent to enforce the mask requirement. parent. He is 4 years old.
Thank
He
you.
cannot be vaccinated and is waiting for you to decide how much
Thank
his
you,
legal
ma'am.
rights in his life matters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please state your name.
My name is Hannah Mangan. The pressure is on you to show us the data that masking our children for 8 hours a day has meaningful benefit beyond the long-term risk it imposes, which you have yet to do. We as parents can prove that masking our children has severe consequences to their mental, emotional, and social health. We can prove to you that suicide and anxiety prescription rates in school-aged children have skyrocketed over the past year. We are not saying that COVID isn't real. We are saying that your political opinions and feelings of mandatory masking do not equate to concrete data. So please let us make decisions based on all aspects of our kids' health. Regarding student exposure quarantining based on vaccination status is clearly a blatant attempt to penalize students who are not vaccinated, keeping them from fair access to education, especially given that vaccinated positive cases can go undetected, yet still spread the virus. It makes no sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name.
My name is Jerini Forsberg. As parents, teachers, grandparents, and voters, we're here to voice our concerns about the lack of transparency and frankly, the honesty exhibited by CCSD. We represent thousands of people across the state and the nation. In the past, most voters trusted that the people who ran for such an important position did so because they cared about all of our children. We were wrong. The current efforts of CCSD to circumvent the law of South Carolina, as stated in the proviso, is evidence of this. Clearly including Marxist ideologies in our curriculum under any name is a violation of state law, and you know this. As a teacher, parent, and grandparent, I've witnessed that children are inherently accepting of all other children. They do not see color until it is pointed out to them. In other words, until it is taught. How then can any false radical agenda serve to advance any of our precious children? These ideologies literally teach them that by virtue of their skin tone, one race is better than another. You cannot end any discrimination by teaching discrimination. I would
Thank
remind
you.
that you have the responsibility to ensure that
Thank
all
you,
of our
ma'am.
children, all of them, receive a fair, truthful, and equal education based on facts, not feelings. Thank you. And I don't appreciate being treated like this because this is a time for us to share with you. And you made us stand in the heat
Please exit the building. Thank you.
and you cut us off. Disgraceful.
Please state your name.
Francis Baylot. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hi. Is the timer started?
Yes.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to come up here in person to thank all the board members for voting in favor of safety, voting in a positive way to ensure that healthcare is delivered in a way that's safe and effective. I wear a mask because I want to protect other people. I don't really need to protect myself. As you can see, I'm in excellent shape and I'm very healthy. So I wear the mask to protect other people, like a lot of our patients at MUSC who are immunocompromised because they have transplants. That's one population I want to speak in favor of tonight because they can't come up here at risk of being infected. So it's important that you think about what you do for other people when you choose to wear a mask, not what you do for yourself, because that's what matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name.
Hi, my name is Jillian Hollingsworth. I have 3 kids who attend Hersey Montessori. First, thank you all for voting in favor of the mask mandate. I greatly appreciate that. I come here tonight to ask for you to keep the mask mandate and most importantly, enforce it. We know that masks and vaccines keep people out of the ICU and off ventilators. We can look at real science, people who study infectious disease to see that fact. Also, I hope that you all will take seriously, if you have not already, some of the threats that are being made to board members who are speaking out again in favor of the mask mandate. Also, can you please consider holding these meetings in a larger space like the North Charleston Coliseum? We shouldn't limit space to for people who want to come here and comment. These are taxpayers' dollars. If we're limiting this room, which is twice as big as most classrooms because of COVID and social distancing, why are we not able to do that inside the classroom? We should open up this space and let whoever wants to come and speak. Thank you. Thank you.
And those are all the speakers.
Okay. Thank you. Reverend Mack, I will turn the meeting back over to you.
Okay, well, we'll now move to item 5C.
Are we skipping 5B?
I'm sorry. American Rescue Act, ESSER 3 funds.
Yes, sir. If there are any speakers, this would be the time for them to make their comments. And if not, we'll move on into the superintendent's report.
Okay,
And Mr. Hamer and Ms. Dangerfield will talk about ESSER 3 under the superintendent's report.
okay, we'll move to item 6A, superintendent's report.
Thank you. As the slides are placed on the screen, I will turn the first remarks over to Reverend Mack.
Thank you, Dr. Postlewaite. Just want to make some brief statement. The CCSD Board of Trustees face great responsibility and a dilemma of keeping our students and staff safe during COVID's rapid growth in our community under the constraints that we have been put on us by state budget proviso 1.108, passed into law this last summer when virus rates were very low. It is our collective opinion that wearing face masks in school is an important health and safety measure. And just that simple action by each of us could help prevent serious illness or death from COVID. Last week, the board issued a strong statement that masks would be required for all students, staff, and visitors for the next 60 days in hopes that the COVID transmission rate will diminish at that time. Our hope continues to be that everyone will comply with the mask requirement for the greater good of all. However, we also do not want students to be punished or sent home from school because we have seen what a year of disruption can do to all of our students, especially those most vulnerable and at risk. And given the complexity of this issue, putting health and safety against state law, we as the CCSD Board of Trustees support the following. The statement requiring masks for students, staff, and visitors inside all schools stands as a strong and visible message about our belief that face masks are important in the fight against COVID. We expect students and staff to wear masks in our facilities and hope our collective call to action for the health and safety of our students, staff, and all CCSD families will be answered. In accordance with state law, we cannot penalize any student who does not wear a mask, and we will not deny access to their education, even as we implore these students and their parents to consider masking as a responsibility to the greater good. We call on the South Carolina General Assembly and Governor McMaster to expeditiously reconsider state budget proviso 1.108 in order to allow our board to make the best local decision for the health and safety of all our students and employees. I hope that this statement will give clarity to where we stand as a board and what we support. Sir, I ask that you, sir, I have control right now at this time. Please remove that gentleman from the boardroom unless he's willing to have a seat as I make my statement.
You only gave us 1 minute.
I hope that this statement will bring clarity to where we stand as a board as we move through these next 60 days within the district. At this time now, we'll continue with the superintendent.
Thank you. On the next slide, we're displaying the recent disease activity by county as of the first day that students started school. You'll see that Charleston is in the high category. We were last Wednesday at 939 cases per 100,000. That's one of the highest rates we've had in Charleston County. Our trend in incident rate is increasing. It's high. And our percent positive, it stands at 12.7%. It's a little lower than it was last week. That could possibly be explained by the fact that fewer people may be going, may have gone to get, more people may have gone to get tested, and there may have been fewer positive cases among those who tested. That percent positive in the test category is really difficult to interpret. So if we move to the next page, then we're sharing the number of COVID positive cases that we had as our school started. Of course, these are the ones that were detected among the students and staff, whether they had already reported to school or not. The numbers that are shown on Saturday and Sunday were those the students who were identified, contact traced, and added to the count. Mr. Barowie has more detailed information about that he will share. Then we're going to hear just a little bit about the opening of schools from Mr. Brigman, who handles all the HR functions, and Ms. Belcher will share some information. There's been some questions about quarantine students. Mr. Barowie will address those. Ms. Belcher will talk a little bit more about what we're currently able to provide virtually and where we intend to try to get as soon as we determine which teachers are available to teach some additional virtual courses and which of those who are currently teaching are open to teaching in dual mode. Mr. Barowie?
Thank you, Dr. Postwaite. So to close on this positive case slide, just for reference, if we project these 5 days over the course of 1 week, it would be the highest week we've had since the pandemic. So we're expecting this number to go up above that high number after 7 days. We do have a number of cases in the queue that are being contact traced by the Director of Nursing and her staff. Moving on to the next slide, positive cases to quarantining, a number of public comments on that today. We are in alignment with the DHEC guidance for a 10-day quarantine. There was an option for 14 days. We chose 10 days because there is a mask requirement for the district. There is another option within DHEC that takes it down to 7 days with a number of testing requirements. The recommendations from MUSC and even DHEC are that is a very slippery slope because the incubation period for COVID goes beyond that 7 days that is referenced in the document. We currently have nearly 500 close contacts that have been quarantined. That includes 5 classes and 1 athletic team is currently quarantined. I did want to make a comment. There was a gentleman that mentioned blanket quarantining. There is no blanket quarantining in the school district. When there is a positive case, that case is reviewed with the coaching staff, the supervisor, essentially of those children. That questionnaire that's used was in place last year. The contact tracer reviews that with the coaches to determine if there is a way to limit the number of children that are quarantined. And we have a number of teams that do a significant amount of cohorting during practice, keeping kids separate. offensive line in one place, defensive line in another place, special teams in another place. And they've got a plan in place if there is a positive case on their team that would hopefully minimize the number of children that are quarantined if there is a positive case. But that's left up to the coaches to try to work through that. We also take advantage of video whenever possible. We used that last year with basketball, especially to review the evidence to see if there was cohorting to minimize the number of children that are quarantined. So we do take that into consideration. We try to minimize that if practical, but we have followed the same guidelines the entire pandemic. We've done more than 2,000 cases of contact tracing. Our nurses were trained by DHEC, and there have been positive comments received by DHEC for the work they've done in a very accurate and professional manner. A couple of other topics I just wanted to cover quickly: transportation and nutrition services. Although our driver count was just below 100%, as of today, we're back over 100%, closer to the 110 that we would like to have. I did make a comment to the board that we were short state buses. Ms. Coakley made had a great question of, does that mean we were essentially short 27 buses? We were not short 27 buses. We were short the buses that were assigned. When that happens, we're forced to use a backup bus, which may not have air conditioning in some cases, or we go to First Student, our contract provider, to provide that bus. So we didn't miss any routes for that shortage, but it is a systemic problem that we have. We're working with state leadership to try to minimize that from happening. But essentially, when you go out on any given day of school, if a bus doesn't start or meet the pre-start safety checks, we take it offline and put a bus online that is safer. From a food service perspective, we got a letter from US Foods late last week that indicated that deliveries may be shorted or missing. And so Mr. Campbell has developed plans to find alternate methods for food and supplies if necessary. So far, we haven't seen any significant problems realized in our schools, but there have been occasions where we've had to change menu items to accommodate some of those shortfalls. Like a lot of other organizations, we do have some staffing shortfalls. We're hoping that works its way through during the month of September. Right now, we have 43. We've got senior people out in the field helping with food service to make sure that our kids are getting the food on time. We're getting through the lines as quick as possible so that kids can get back into their classroom. So nothing significant at this point, but there are shortages there that have been identified. That's all I have for the board.
Thank you, Jeff. So for teacher vacancies, our first day of school, we had 23 classroom vacancies. A large majority of those, or about 9 of those, were special education, which has been a challenge for not just for Charleston County School District, but every district in the state as well as the nation. So we're continuing to recruit, and we'll continue to do so into the fall as needed. We did welcome 585 brand new teachers to Charleston County School District, so about 100 more than last year this time. We saw about 100 positions out of the ESSER $2, so additional support. So 585 new employees, new teachers to our classrooms. 176 of our teachers transferred between schools. So we actually posted about 761 positions in the recruitment season. I also provided a breakdown by elementary, middle, high, our alternative and central that you can take a look at. At the 761, it was a very busy recruitment season for us. And it was a different recruitment season considering the pandemic, and more virtual recruitment took place. As far as our new hire orientation, we had about 686 new employees. That would be both teachers and other staff members come to orientation. Our orientation continues to be virtual as well. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm excited to report that schools are open, and we began the process of making sure that students took home devices, including the distribution of about 500 plus MiFi devices. for a couple of reasons. One, obviously, if kids are quarantined or have to stay home for any reason, they can still engage in instruction remotely. Second is we also are partnering with several organizations for after-school programs. And we want to make sure the students can bring their device with them to their after-school program in order to sign into the Canvas courses and work with their tutors on their academic work. We found that that worked well last year. Schools are monitoring attendance tightly in these first few days, reaching out to families and doing home visits so we can get more kids back in school. That has been a top priority, and the Department of Alternative Programs is providing particular support with those schools who had lower numbers during the first week of school. As you all know, we also are piloting a new social studies curriculum this year that reflects the new state standards. We have two units up for public comment, grade 5 and grade 8, so that families and community members can weigh in on the curriculum. And we plan to have an advisory board help us take the input from the community in order to revise and improve the social studies curriculum over time. Low Country Virtual, which is our partnership for Virtual Academy, what we ran last year ourselves, but this year are doing as a multi-district partnership, began on Wednesday as well. We currently have 368 Charleston County students enrolled in that program, attending K-8. Some of them started a little later because they had to pick up their devices from their home school, but for now they should be up and running. As you know, we ran that program's registration last spring, and families had to apply. They went through a review process to make sure it was a good fit for them academically, and to ensure that if they had a IEP or a 504 plan, they were accommodating that in some way through the Virtual Academy. As you would expect, with the COVID numbers being higher, we have a higher number of interest in families who are interested in Low Country Virtual. We did purchase all available seats over the course of last week, so we opened them up. And as reported in the Post and Courier and other places, we did accept more students off the waiting list this week, so that we're up to maximizing all of our seats currently. We have at Friday, we had about 107 families on the waiting list for additional vacancies. Our plan is if we can find teachers to teach those classes, we can stand up additional Low Country Virtual classes. It is looking like we might need them in grades 1 through 6. The challenge is the teacher capacity, which is our challenge in general in accommodating students in quarantine or virtually. We interviewed some teachers today who'd applied separate to this for the system, and we're going to pay a lot of attention to the 7 and 10 day count to see if we have schools that are particularly under-enrolled where we may have an opportunity to reassign teachers in order to teach in Virtual Academy. Our intent is to make sure that we can accommodate as many families as we possibly can, although it's worth noting that it may not be that we can accommodate every family through Low Country Virtual. Other virtual options, just to call that out, because I know that lots of families, and there was some public comment about that as well. At the elementary level, we're asking each school to identify, depending on the size of the school, 1 or 2 individual point people by grade level to work with those students who are quarantined, so that there's daily contact with kids who are out for quarantine or any other reason. As you may or may not realize, we never had dual instruction at the elementary level last year. There were virtual classes or there were in-person classes, because with the little ones, it was hard to be able to run a computer simultaneously. Thus, we're trying to set up to make sure that we can have some sort of virtual connection with any quarantined students in the elementary school level. And again, daily, at least an hour a day. And for larger schools, we might have to make different accommodations. I appreciate the passion that I heard from families today, and I've certainly heard via email about wanting to make sure that no child falls behind on quarantine. I would ask for patience from our community. It's day 4 of the first year of school. I'm coming back to school when we have higher COVID numbers and when we have to get some kids back in school and just stand up our academic programs. Dr. Williams has been meeting with the high school principals, who I think have the biggest challenge when it comes to quarantining. There is the option of having a computer in the classroom, but what we're trying to avoid is having our in-person students learning virtually, which happened a lot last year, where the students were open with the computer and weren't having the interaction that we think is best for instruction. So Dr. Williams and the high school principals have developed customized plans to try to accommodate that. It's going to take us at least a week to stand that up. So it should be up and running by August 30th. And the same will be true as sort of a hybrid for the middle school, where it's possible we'll customize the plan. In other cases, we may have a daily touch point with each person by grade level. We share parents' goals to make sure no child falls behind academically. As you all know, our goal in this year is to try to make sure we close the COVID achievement gaps, and we want to make sure that we get ahead. And so I'll just say the more that we can have families supporting safety procedures so we can minimize the number of quarantined kids, the better it is for academics across the board. On the second slide, some other things to highlight that are happening. As you remember, we invested in the Saga tutoring program to launch this fall at Burke, Stahl, and West Ashley High School. Stahl and Burke are doing it as a virtual model, and West Ashley and Burke are doing it as a virtual model, and Stahl is doing it in person. So there are tutors in the classroom as a separate tutoring class. Preliminary information is that it's up and running well. We still need a couple of more bilingual tutors at Stahl. So they're working to see if we can have those remotely, at least initially, while they find in-person folks to take on that role. But it seems to be off to a good start. Second, the acceleration schools are currently piloting a reading curriculum. The name of it is EL, after extensive professional development prior to the start of the school year. Initial teacher feedback from the professional development is promising. They're excited to have a more structured English language arts curriculum, but it does demand a lot from teachers. Right now, we're just piloting the literature component of the program. We're keeping Haggerty's and Open Court, which is the foundational, the K-2 phonics and phonemic awareness, so that we minimize the amount of change on any school community in a given year. But again, we're excited to see if we get good results for this curriculum and see if it has opportunity for us to expand it in outlying years and other schools next semester.
I'd like to thank the cabinet members who have presented, and also to ask Dr. Williams, who supervises middle and high schools, and Ms. Simmons, who is head of the elementary schools, if there was anything they wanted to offer additionally.
Not in addition.
Okay. Thank you. Reverend Mack, I think before we get started with the ESSER 3 part of the report, this might be a good place to take a break in case board members have a question about the opening of school information that we have presented so far.
All right, Ms. Darby?
I want to thank everybody staff for what y'all did to get schools open. And I know that Mr. Bro is thrilled with the bus situation and having more buses that we fought with for the last few years. So congratulations to y'all for doing all that. One question, Mr. Bro, and you may have talked about this, but I didn't process it. Can you just tell us the difference when we're doing the contact tracing and the close contacts between what we're doing for 3 feet and 6 feet? I've had a lot of parents ask about that.
So that is a change from last year. DHEC's regulation or protocol were changed to say that the students that are greater than 3 foot from another student that's positive, whether or not they're wearing a mask, is not considered a close contact. So in the past, it was within 6 foot if there was no plexiglass, but they've changed the requirement from 6 foot to 3 foot. They've reduced it so that any student that is a positive case that is next to another student, but it's more than 3 foot, the other child is not considered a close contact. It is still 6 foot for adults.
Okay, so it's 6 foot for adults, 3 feet for the kids. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any further questions? Ms. Copley and then Ms. Waters.
I was just curious to know, why did we take the signage down in reference to the signs encouraging masks? They've been removed. And my question and correction, when you were talking about the buses, Mr. Baroi, I was wanting to know whether or not we knew this prior to the first day of school, or when did we exactly know that we were in this situation?
So to answer the second question first, Ms. Coakley, we have a weekly meeting with the State Department to review the buses. We had our last meeting before school started on the 17th. We were not told there would be 27 buses that wouldn't start the following day. So we did not know on the first day of school that those buses would not be part of it. So we have a weekly meeting with them. They indicated that everything was okay. So that's an issue we have, and I've had conversations with the leadership at the State Department. Second question was, going back to the first question.
The signage.
The signage. So when the board changed from strongly encouraged to the mask requirement, the signs were taken down because the verbiage had changed. We have just not gotten the signs back up yet. We'll work on that this week. So when the board put out their mask requirement, that changed the guidance on the signage. So we just need to get that corrected and get those signs back up.
You know how
Yes,
long
ma'am.
it's gonna take before we get that back in?
We should have it clearly before the end of the week, even if it's temporary signage.
Okay, Ms. Waters?
This question is for Ms. Belcher. For the soccer tutoring program, are students pulled out into a permanent separate section, or are they just pulled out sometimes, or like, do they have that as a class in their schedule, or is it just sometimes they're pulled out and sometimes they?
It's a class in their schedule. So it's a regular routine class, depending on whether it's a semester block, double block, or single block. They'll have it all year if it's a single block, and obviously a semester. They get credit for it as an elective, and they're in a ratio at the tutor for half the time they're with an individual tutor to a ratio of 1-3 or 1-4. And then they're working independently on some of the exercises to build off the tutoring area within the block.
So does this replace any core class, or does it replace an elective, or how does that work?
It doesn't replace a core class, it does replace an elective.
Okay, I did have two more questions. Okay, my other question regarding learning services is with the sort of hybrid implementation of EL, and I completely understand you wanting to not cause too much change at once, but do you have any data on what impact implementing part of the curriculum versus the full curriculum at once might have on its effectiveness, or how,
We made this decision in consultation with our consultants, leading educators that are working specifically with the acceleration schools, and to a lesser extent EL themselves. It's a very different way of teaching on the literacy component. So rather than doing what has been with literacy by design or journeys, we do a lot more of a reading group model. In this model, every kid in the class has the grade level text and additional supports. So it takes quite a bit of a lift for teachers to operate that piece differently. The Phonics program, for those of you who know Phonics, you're explicitly teaching kids letter sounds, how to blend words together and segment words. While it will be better when it's all integrated, Phonics is Phonics is Phonics. So it means they have to touch two things, but they already know open core. So that felt like it would save some energy for our early childhood teachers, particularly as we're moving towards more consistency around Haggerty's, which is the phonemic awareness curriculum. So we wanted to try to balance that. If we see that some of the schools are ready to move faster, we can do that, but we wanted to also make sure that we were doing it well and focusing our energies in the right places and balancing the amount of change. And there's been a lot of change on the teachers already across the system, but particularly in the acceleration schools.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Hitter.
Ms. Belcher, I may have missed this. How many seats total do we have at Low Country Virtual?
Right now we have 368. Ms.
Joe, did you correct me at all with that, or do I have the right number? 368, that's been all for the seat. And we're trying to get 107 off the wait list.
That's correct, ma'am, but there may be more that are on the wait list based on today.
Okay.
Because we have renewed interest over the weekend with the recent news article.
Okay. And we have those teacher positions posted, or
We
is
do.
that through Low Country Virtual?
We have those positions posted. They would be CCSD because we would stand up CCSD only classes. There may be opportunities later to see if we can get some economies of scale with other districts, but for this moment, to try to move as quickly as we can with the kids on the waiting list, that's our move.
What kind of time frame are we looking at to be able to notify families?
We're hoping to be able to make a decision during the first August 30th week, so the first week of September, in part because we want folks to start off as quickly as we can at the beginning of the year. There's two variables. One is interviewing where there's some of those candidates can transition quickly enough to start a class. The second is our 7 and 10 count day. If our enrollment is low in other schools, low enough that we think we should and can reassign a teacher, then we would move those teachers over to the grade level. We try to minimize that, and we made some real financial investments given our ESSER money, is to try not to make a lot of changes. But that's the other lever we're going to be looking at, and we won't have that information until the end of this week.
Thank you.
I just have one more question.
Mr. Burrow, are we providing guidance to athletic directors on, especially for sporting teams, having them separate so we don't have to quarantine the entire team now that rates have increased?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Dr. Frazier, and then Dr. French.
My question is to Mr. Brigman. Did I hear you say that something about using ESSER two funds to supplement hires? And what is NHO that you utilize over the summer months?
Yes, ma'am. NHO is our new hire orientation. I'll tackle that one first. Sorry for that. I should have said that when I was talking. But it's our orientation for all brand new employees to the district to welcome them and go over their benefits and other pieces. The ESSER piece I commented on was ESSER 2, and there were positions that were school-based, many classroom positions that schools were able to add to their staff to help support this particular school year.
So do we know how much do we have left in the ESSER two funds?
I do not, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Brigman.
Certainly, thank you.
So, Dr. Frazier, I'm not sure I understand the question. Do you mean that how much is left in ESSER two to fund these school-based teaching positions? So we placed in ESSER two funds for fiscal year 22 funds for 215 positions, majority of school-based positions. So the only amounts that would be left out of that pool would be the positions that have not been hired yet. So that, be unspent funds, but it was 215 positions. And I think that number was around $11 million, but I'm not sure. I have to look at the dollar amount.
Yeah. Dr. French.
Yes. First for Mr. Barowie, on the COVID dashboard. So you showed us some numbers that also show cases specifically on Saturday and Sunday. So when we're looking at the dashboard, would those be added into the Friday previous or the Monday afterwards?
Pull up the dashboard now.
Okay. Because we don't have Friday and Saturday on the dashboard is why I was asking.
So if I'm not mistaken, and I would defer to communications to correct me if I'm wrong, it's added to the previous week's total. It's not added to the following week.
Okay, that makes sense.
Correct.
That's right. Okay. And then the other one, I might need help from nursing services on this. I have a little scenario that I want to ask about in terms of close contact and quarantine. So let's say the child's close contact is a family member. So the child doesn't have COVID necessarily. They've been exposed to a family member who has COVID. They live with their family member even while they're sick. And maybe they've had their 10 days of quarantine because they've been a close contact. How do we determine if that child's ready to come back to school? Do we just look at the symptoms in the child and a negative test, or what's the criteria for that?
If the child's parents report the case to the school, which happens on a lot of occasions where a parent will call and say, hey, I'm positive, my kids are close contact. We document that and we identify when the child can come back to school.
If the parents still have symptoms though, does that factor in at all?
No, it's based on, my understanding is it's based on the first contact. When the parent is symptomatic, that's when the child's count begins.
Okay. And then
And I want to add there's, and I'll have to double check with nursing. It's also related to the ability for that parent to isolate away from the family. So there is some complications behind that.
Okay.
And I don't have it at the ready here.
Right. Okay. Thanks. Mentioning the fact that we have some ESSER 2 money for full-time employees and even maybe some for part-time employees, I don't know, but I was wondering, it's my understanding that sometimes the nursing services kind of gets into a backlog for contact tracing because it's a tremendous amount of work. Is it possible for us to hire a few people for temporary times like this, get them trained by DHEC, or have some people in the ready who are trained to come in and help supplement that. And I guess I was looking at Mr. Kennedy because he knows about the money, but I'm sure maybe this is for Dr. Postlewaite.
So it's not a matter of funding, Mr. Broey.
So Ellen Nitz has developed a job description for temporary contact tracers that's been advertised for the past at least week or so. She has 7 employees that she's looking at bringing on board here momentarily, probably within the next day or two. And she's also utilizing more of her school nurses to cover the contact tracing workload that's there right now. So she's done a number of things to try to reduce that backlog.
That's really good news. I know that parents will appreciate that.
Okay, Ms. Coakley.
Ms. Belcher, the new social studies curriculum, you said it's posted. Where is it posted or located so that parents can actually look at it and comment, the public comments?
It's posted on the website, ma'am. and-
CCSD?
What's that?
Which CCSD website?
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Barrow.
So in answer to Dr. French's question, Ellen was texting me. Her clarification is pretty close to what I said. The child does come back at day 10, but the nurse assesses for the next 4 days up until the 14-day
Oh, so
mark.
they monitor symptoms basically.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
that sounds good.
Okay, thank you, board members. Dr. Postlewaite.
Thank you. We'll move on now to the ESSER 3 review. I'll just start with an overview slide, and then Maggie Dangerfield, who, along with the communications department, has handled a tremendous community engagement effort, and Mr. Steve Hamer, who's headed the project management portion of the ESSER 3 work to date, will be presenting the rest of the slides. I just wanted to remind everyone that May through July, our district focused intently on community engagement efforts, and there's more to come. That was just the beginning. There's a whole lot more work to do with every single community in the district. The August 24th, and I'll put that in quotes, plan is extremely high level, and that is on purpose. We are suggesting that the board may want to consider approving the priorities. Board approval of the plan at this point is not required. We need to submit to the State Department basically just an estimate of the amount of those funds we think we will spend in each of the 15 categories. The state looks at what we have submitted. The detail that has to be included in that has to reflect what we wrote in our academic recovery plan this spring. But then we have the opportunity to come back and really work out a detailed plan, which will come back to you by January or in January. I might have been a little ambitious in my statement of the next bullet. The board advisory team, we had hoped would be appointed tonight with everything else that the board has been working on. I don't know where that is. It's an item on the agenda. The actions, though, from now through December will include a very, very intensive and intentional effort to involve student, educator, parent, community, and other representatives to develop the more detailed proposals. We have several education partners who are interested in helping with us. Mr. Hamer will talk a little bit more about that. But again, I want to emphasize that this cannot possibly be a one-size-fits-all approach, and that those students who, one way to say it is that they were most negatively impacted by COVID-19, that ignores the fact that many of the students who are below readiness levels were already impacted, and COVID-19 exacerbated their challenges. So with all of that, I will turn it over to Maggie Dangerfield, who now will review with you the engagement efforts so that you will know the thoroughness in our outreach.
Thank you, Dr. Postlewaite. Board Chair Mack, Vice Chair Waters, Board of Trustees, thank you for the opportunity to share some details about our engagement efforts over the past couple of months with you all. On our engagement timeline, we commenced in early June with 2 focus groups. Those were comprised of staff, parents, and community leaders. That was kind of our entry point into the discussion of ESSER, and it focused on looking at the 15 allowable areas of expenditure and discussing top 5 prioritizations of those areas of expenditure, along with some other engagement efforts related to safe restart protocols for the fall. After that session was concluded, we opened online surveys in the middle of June, towards the end of June, with nearly 4,000 respondents completing those. There was a series of them to staff, parents, community, constituent district board members, also asking them about the 15 allowable areas of expenditure and their top 5 priorities within those areas. Of those, a consensus emerged around 6. And from those 6, starting in late June, we developed another series of online surveys that we deployed to the community, asking them for specific feedback and strategies within those 6 priority areas about programs, initiatives, activities. In addition to that, we also made phone calls to parents at 24 high poverty schools. About 480 numbers were selected at random, and we were able to touch base with about 178 parents to ask for their specific feedback as well. Additionally, we held 2 community town halls in constituent district areas where we saw a lower response rate in our survey efforts, so that we could touch base with constituents there and hear directly from those individuals what their thoughts and ideas were in the 6 priority areas, as well as anything else that would support student and family success. We also held face-to-face sessions with students, K-8 students in our summer engagement camps, and 9 through 12 students in credit recoveries. We sent out paper surveys to those and engaged with their staff members there. And then we had ongoing community engagement efforts where staff members from CCSD took paper surveys out to existing community meetings and had dialogue one-on-one with individuals there, asking about ways to support student success and discussing ESSER and the allowable activity areas. So just at a summary level, this is a little bit of what our engagement looked like. Again, reaching a little bit in total over 5,000 individuals directly one-on-one about those in just a few short weeks. As mentioned, we went about the engagement in a myriad of methods. We first started with the focus groups via Zoom. We also followed that with a survey to those individuals, and then we developed a broader survey that we sent out across different stakeholder groups that was just focused on the 15 allowable activity areas. From that, after the top 6 emerged, we developed another tier of engagement that was more surveys, paper, and online, that went out and asked for specific feedback within those 6 areas. So just to highlight a little bit of the data that emerged from the focus groups, during our discussions, as well as the survey before that we convened our time together, it did show across both groups that there was a general consensus of those 6 priority areas to address needs of low-income students, to address learning loss, mental health supports, summer and after-school learning, indoor air quality, and educational technology. And just another look at that data broken out in our online surveys. Our one that was deployed to the community and parents that had about 4,000 responses. The bulk of those respondents were identified as parents. And then on the graph below, the one in blue, the small pie graph at the bottom, it was broken out by constituent district area, which helped inform us where we were holding our town hall sessions to engage more constituents in areas with lower response rates proportionate to the number of students they represent in the district. Our next slide looks at staff responses. Again, consensus there with the 6 priority areas that we focused on, and then the distribution of respondents kind of mirroring the proportion of our elementary, middle, and high schools across the district. And so diving into the specific responses received in our 6 priority areas, there was a reoccurring theme throughout all of these, with the exception of indoor air quality, but the bulk of them were about after-school programs, tutoring, and just direct student support for academic success. The bubbles that you see in these series of graphs correlate with the frequency of the response submitted. Some others that were also of note were expanded meal programs, smaller class sizes, parent resources, special education, resources for students and parents. And again, these are consistent across most of the priority areas, particularly in the mental health services. It was services for students, access to services and tools and resources, in addition to staffing. In summer learning and after-school programs, in addition to just having more of those opportunities, it was also accessibility to those opportunities. So transportation, as well as the financial cost associated with that. And in the realm of indoor air quality, generally it was updates and upgrades to existing facilities, things like more daily vacuuming, repairing leaks, and adding more plants to our environment. And so during our parent phone calls, some of the themes that emerged there, again, recurring after-school programs, tutoring, mental health, summer enrichment, and more frequent communication about student progress. That also was definitely a theme that emerged throughout our discussions about ways to support students. In our town hall meetings in District 23 and District 4, we met with stakeholders there and presented a quick overview of ESSER 3 and the 15 allowable activity areas and some of the engagement that had been done to date, as well as the 6 priority areas that emerged in online surveys. And then we asked participants to share their strategies and feedback in person there in an open forum, as well as ask them to fill out a paper survey before they left that had some of the specific feedback that we had received within the 6 priority areas, and ask them to prioritize those in high and low. So some of that data that emerged from that prioritization, the top priority was transportation after school and summer programs, followed by expanded summer enrichment, helping students navigate stress and anxiety, mental health counselors in all schools, expanded counseling and grief services, one-to-one device expansion, smaller class sizes, and internet access. And then in our student engagement, we were able to meet face-to-face with students. We also were able to provide translation services for students there whose English was not their primary language. And within our interviews with students, two of the most recurring themes were help with core subjects, help with math, and help with reading. Additionally, tutoring and after-school opportunities that provide academic support, more sports, activities and books that could be sent home with them over the summer, and general thoughts and sentiments about having patience with students and having someone to talk to at school. And as Dr. Postwaite mentioned, this is just the beginning of engagement, and there will be a significant more amount to come throughout the next couple of years as we go through the ESSER 3 process. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hamer now.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. I'd like to take a few minutes here to go over some specifics of the ESSER draft plan and the application that we plan to submit tomorrow by the deadline. The ESSER application, as you can see, has lots of elements to it. And what I really want to go over to you tonight are really the details of the spending plan and the high-level budget, and give you some sense of how we've identified where the portions of the entire grant should be distributed among the approved activities according to the grant application process. So I want to go over the budget overview, our high-level budget. I'll really talk a little bit about those specific activities that we've identified to address learning loss, and then those activities that we've put funds to for other approved ESSER funds. So as you recall from previous briefs, our sub-grant for this grant is $163 million. What is very important to point out is one of the elements of this grant is that it has to have at least 20% of the total grant go towards learning loss. In our case, it would be over $32 million. I think you'll see when I give some more details on where we propose to allocate those funds, we've actually done more than that in terms of learning loss and those things that we just talked about for priorities for our community. But 146 million, 90% of the grant we're proposing go towards the stakeholder priorities and those activities that support students and teachers. So very little of this, or a small percentage of this, does not go towards directly teachers and students and those priorities that our community and stakeholders provided to us. So again, you've seen this in previous slides and certainly in previous brief, the 6 priorities that we built our strategy and built our funding plan around. So this is really the next slide, I think, is what you're most interested is how the $163 million gets distributed, or our plan, our spending plan for this. Now, I know this is a bit of an eye chart, so appreciate you drilling down a little bit, Maggie. So
Mr.
learning
Hamer,
loss, as I
Mr.
said
Hamer,
before.
can you speak just a little bit louder so they can hear you, or come a little closer to the mic?
Yes, sir. So with regards to learning loss, again, we have a minimum of 20% of our budget that should go to that. We have in our spending plan, actually 25% of our budget, a little bit over $40 million. But as you can see, when you go down the list there are other activities, there are other approved activities that speak to learning loss. I mean, there is a way to put together this plan. And in fact, when some of my discussions with the coordinators at the state, they have said you could actually roll everything that you attribute to learning loss in that 20% category. I thought a little bit helpful the way we developed our plan to have a little bit more flexibility with having funding in those categories that are attributed to learning loss, but not in that 20%. And again, I'll talk about that a little bit later. So as you go down this spreadsheet or this template that we fill out for our application, you'll see where we recommend putting the fundings that ultimately gets to our $163 million of total budget. One of the things I want to point out is, in addition to the learning loss in the 25% there, we've tried to put together a plan that put 15% of the total budget towards summer school and after school programs. And certainly another high percentage, or certainly a high dollar amount, over $10 million towards additional activities to address learning loss. So this is how we've laid out our budget. Again, as was said already, this does not necessarily lock us into this being the final plan. This is a 3-year program. I would imagine throughout the course of managing this program, there'll be more ideas, more innovation, more thoughts on activities that we could do that would want us to shift around some of these priorities or shift around some of the funds of how we've laid it out. What we're doing with submitting our budget tomorrow, or our plan tomorrow, is making sure we do due diligence with the state requirements and the federal requirements to put together a plan and to put together a spending plan to allow us to start spending the money and asking for reimbursement of it. So again, the door does not close on the ability to develop plans and develop ideas and develop activities when we submit it tomorrow. It does just allow us the program to get underway and us to start putting together some plans and some spending plans and actually putting some activities into action. So again, this plan is really based entirely, or not entirely, but mostly on addressing learning loss. And these are the key elements of our plan, pulled from our academic recovery plan, and really just outlines, I think, what really are going to be the key strategies that we develop from our spending plan here. Certainly developing and implementing new rigorous standards for ELA and social studies, accelerating learning opportunities in summer enrichment camps at particular sites, ELA and math enrichment tutoring, expanding professional learning for our leaders, providing accelerating schools with more intensive support, and adding more climate coaches, social workers, and student support coaches where needed, and expanding restorative practices. And so I've got some more specifics on those academic loss details that are in the backup here. But again, this is kind of the basis, the foundation of how we're putting together our strategy. So in terms of the application that's due tomorrow, some key takeaways. Detailed implementation strategies and schedules will still be developed over the next several weeks. Again, overarching focus is learning loss, to identify severely impacted students. And of course, over the next 3 months, as we've said before, really hone in on some ideas that will give us some more specific activities that you can be aware of. One of the key things about this, and we tried to put this out in this bullet, is I think leveraging existing community-based organizations and using their experience within the communities and some of the programs that they're working, and partnering with them to the extent that their activities can come into the activities that are usable for ESSER funds. And so that's going to be, I think, a huge part of what we do over the next several weeks, identifying those community-based organizations and identifying those programs that are already winning, ones that are proven that we can leverage and expand their success. So again, stakeholder input and recommendations is an ongoing component. Was just outlined to you a very comprehensive outreach to stakeholders that doesn't end. There will be town hall meetings. There will be other surveys to not only monitor the impact of it, but to continue to get the good ideas. We'll certainly be open to innovation, actively searching promising practices. And again, as I said, really do our best to try to leverage with our community partners. The funding expires on this September 20th or September 30th, 2024. I think a better way of saying this is the ability to request reimbursement for funds ends on that. And so I think a key way to go about this is to make investments in programs and activities that go beyond that deadline of when the funds run out. One last point that I wanted to make, and again, when I briefed you a couple of weeks ago, I think it's important for there to be very clear metrics and dashboards, fiscal transparency of what's going on. I don't think there should be any question, and there won't be any question on where the money is going and the impact of the money. So we'll develop these dashboards that show the pace of the expenditures over the 3-year period, the specific programs that the extra $3 are going, the impact of those programs with our readiness metrics, and certainly the results of our community when we send out surveys on how these programs are impacting them. The next slide is just to give you, again, I've talked quite a bit about these allowable activities that we've distributed the money through. And I just wanted to provide and back up some specifics on how those activities are worded and give you a little bit of detail on kind of the logic of why we put the money where we did. And the last 2 slides, I've given you a lot of detail on the learning loss strategy. Again, this is pulled from my academic recovery plan, which is a requirement or recommendation from the state coordinators to use our academic recovery plan as a means to develop our learning loss plan. So subject to your question, that's all the slides that I have for you this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hamer. This is an action item for tonight. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we affirm the priorities the district is submitting with the understanding that each constituent community will have an opportunity to be involved in further refinements to ensure the plan addresses specific needs of every area of the district. Second.
Properly moving second, moved by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Waters. Are there any questions?
So Reverend Mack, to be clear, we're approving the priorities.
Correct.
The 6? I thought we already had, the 6 priorities.
Correct,
That's
right.
really
We
what
have,
we're-
yeah, we have not yet.
I thought we'd already done.
So this,
Yeah,
Dr.
and I have a
Francis?
question too.
Okay, Dr. French and then Dr. Frazier, sure.
so yeah, and just to piggyback, so we're not necessarily approving the specific percentages. Is that
Correct.
so? And I guess that's part of my question is you were mentioning these things can change. So are you saying the percentages we allocate for these different areas could change? I thought the high level wanted us to kind of pin that down.
No, that does, well, it does not necessarily lock us in. We'll submit the plan based on our initial judgment of the activities that we want to execute. But for example, if we decide after maybe some more planning with community-based organizations and some other type things that we want to move some more money into mental health programs, we have that ability to do that during the duration of this program.
Dr. Pottsville?
Yeah, that's correct. Every 6 months, we're required to bring the plan back to the board for recalibration.
Okay, because one of my concerns was that I felt mental health supports were mentioned pretty highly in all of the engagement that we did. And we have less than 9% budgeted for that right now. So it's concerning to me. And I hope that we're looking at some other things that we want to try to do with that. I was also a little bit concerned that we don't seem to be doing anything on the first line item that might help with IDEA with disabilities. We don't seem to have anything budgeted for that. So because it's specifically targeted to one particular proposal.
Yes, ma'am. I think that you're right. Even though there's a percentage-wise less of our amount that you see in mental health, that doesn't mean it's not a priority. And I think that the ability to still execute some impactful programs can be done with that. But your point is well taken. If we determine as we put some more specificity to these programs that we want to add some more money for additional support with either psychologists or social workers or professional leadership with our staff, we have the ability to do that. I will tell you that I think initially that does raise significantly the amount of staff that we can put towards mental health. But the point is well taken. If there's an opportunity to look at that, if some other savings or some other priorities change, I think that's what we can do.
Okay, Dr. Bridges.
Yes. I have a question I might have to wait until the next item on the agenda comes up. But how is it that we can already approve or either talk about an item that we're going to be looking at next? In other words, we're spending the money before we submit the plan, and I'm talking about Achieve, and we're going to be discussing that next. Is that something that we can do, that this board can actually spend money on a proposal that we have not even approved and it's not included in your plan? How are we spending money before you submit the plan?
Just one comment. Within the specifics and the detail of this plan does assume that the a plan for Chief Charleston that was approved by the board is funding in that. If you look into more specifics on one of the documents that we have to send in, I call out Achieve Charleston as one of the things to be funded by this. So this is one of the activities that is in the plan that over the next 3 years, we will use these ESSER funds to fund.
All right. All right, any further questions? All right, we've had a motion on the floor by Ms. Darby, second by Ms. Waters. We ask that you please cast your vote. Thank you, Mr. Hamer.
Do you mind if I ask just for us to
Yes.
find the slide that has the 6 priorities on it?
I'm sorry, say again, I can't hear you.
Can we find the slide that has the 6 priorities that we're voting on it?
It's on page 35.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't hear that part, I'm sorry. Ms. Green, how do you vote? Ms. Green?
Yes.
She vote yes.
I did have a question at the end of the vote, but I don't think you saw my hand.
I'm sorry, my apologies. What's
No
your
problem.
Ms. Green, what's your question?
I just wanted to know if the plan for reviewing and approving community proposals. It may be that that's too early, that we don't really have a strategy for that yet, but if we do, I just wanted to know kind of what that was going to look like.
Okay. If you give Mr. Hamer an opportunity to get to the microphone.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. As I pointed out, that is a real important part of this process. And I've developed a draft of a template proposal application that over the next 10 days or so, we will make available to the public and also make available to our community-based community support organizations to develop some proposals of some activities that will match this. So there'll be an opportunity for them to develop proposals, a spending plan, and send it into the district that we can review and come up with some strategy or some priority of how we can support those organizations with their proposals.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamer. Okay, that motion passes. Item 7A,
Move to approve. Second.
moved by Ms. Coates, second by Ms. Darby. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we ask that you please, I'm sorry, Dr. French, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I guess I have a comment. I asked a lot of questions at the last meeting and I don't want to spend a lot of time, but
And speak a little closer into that microphone there.
okay. So my main problem with the proposal is two things. One is it doesn't clearly address any of the 6 priorities that we just voted on. Second, this was a goal for the board that we basically said, we're going to pay for this. And so I feel like this should be part of our budgeting process, that we should budget to fund the goals of Achieve Charleston. And that we need to do that when we have a more fleshed out plan to do it. So those are the concerns that I have.
Reverend Mack, would you like me to address the questions? Thank you for your questions, Dr. French. The first question that you had, can you restate
This Achieve Charleston does not fall under one of the 6
Yes.
priorities. It's
Thank you.
actually under priority number 1 of the 15 priorities, which was not included in the 6.
So one, Achieve Charleston is focused completely on academic integration and making sure that as students exit our system, that they're prepared for the next step. That's actually the objective of the entire education system, and everything under ESSER, which is, you know, sort of an emergency relief funding effort, is also geared toward making sure that we don't lose any students. And so actually Achieve Charleston falls under most of these categories specifically because it not only is going to address curriculum needs, but potentially guidance needs, which would impact what students are receiving in terms of their social and emotional care. And you know, really it doesn't fit neatly into a package, one, because it actually predated ESSER funding. The only thing that we're asking in our proposal is that we use ESSER funding to make sure that we get this stood up, because we do believe that it goes directly towards student achievement and impact. And that's the entire purpose, not only of this system, but of ESSER funding, to make sure that students continue to be able to achieve amid the circumstances of COVID. The second piece around whether or not we as a board, could you just restate exactly what the question was that we as a board should be doing?
Well, it's related to the first. I mean, I think, like you said, we committed to this before ESSER funding. I don't think we should be using ESSER money for it. I think it should be part of our regular budget because we are committed to it. And if that's what we're going to do, let's do it. But I don't see any specifics in the proposal that address any of these areas that you're talking about. The proposal is more about justifying hiring people right now.
So I think to do anything effectively, you have to hire people to carry out the work. You have people to manage operations. You have people to manage academics. You have people to manage finance. You don't actually have anyone to manage the implementation and effectiveness of this program, the integration of all of these pieces of the system to make sure that they're furthering the goal of getting students ready for what happens when they leave here. And again, because this speaks directly to their academic performance and their ability to access what the system has to offer, it actually does fall under the guidelines of COVID because it is all pertaining to academics. And we know that we need to account for backslide that has happened amid COVID. And just so that you understand the process of how we got here, you know, we really took a look at what we believe this program can do and what I thought the rest of the board believed this program could do when we voted for it in the spring, and determined that using ESSER funding is a tremendous opportunity to make sure that we take this moment to examine the system and get it ready to support an endeavor like this.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Howard.
Also with ESSER funding, we're really trying to make all of these programs sustainable. That was the pitch on hiring individuals to stand it up, so it would not have to come out of our operating budget.
Ms. Hurd, that's actually a good point, because one of the individuals is someone to support grants, and that is all about sustainability. And again, making sure that it can continue to go on even after ESSER funds run out.
And that should be our goal with everything that we're spending, mental health, every aspect of ESSER funding, that is sustainable.
Okay, Dr. Frazier.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that
Speaking of Mike.
this was an initiative brought to us prior to talking about ESSER funds. And I'm just concerned that it does not meet any of the criteria that's listed in the ESSER funding proposal. This is not research-based, because the research that I've done about students going to college is that most of our students of Black and brown color are adversely affected by going to college once they graduate because of the burden of having student loan debt. And I will send this to the board once we get through with this meeting. I'm also concerned that when we look at the fact that 48% of our Black students are not even reading on grade level as of 2018-19, that we're proposing pushing a college incentive for these students. I think that the first thing we ought to be doing is to making sure and promising students that they can read at grade level by the time they graduate from high school.
So Dr. Fraser, actually, everything you said is actually the impetus and intention of this program. The program is meant to examine where students are and what they need to receive so that they're ready for post-secondary life. That's to include apprenticeships, if they want to go directly into career, if they want to go to a two-year college. It's not just for four-year university. So to your point, it's actually not trying to funnel people into one direction. But I do want to address some of the other things that you mentioned. One of the components of the program, in all of the programs, well, I won't say all because I didn't read about all, but most of the programs that exist of this nature is financial. And so helping students pay for college as well, which is a really great part. So this grant writer would not just be focused on raising money to help pay for the internal aspects of the program, but also the community engagement person will be engaging the institutions around what types of scholarship and grant opportunities they can take part in, and raising money potentially to help them get there. The point is, we don't know exactly what this program will look like, but if we're going to make a commitment to get students to college, it's going to encompass and address all of those things.
And my reply to that is that we have guidance counselors who have been trained. Most of them are certified to talk about careers in college. It starts in the 6th grade and it ends once they have graduated from high school, so that we have someone in place talking with students about this. And so why are we duplicating services by using the ESSER funds?
My question in response to that would be, are all students going to college after, or going to where they want to go after? And if the answer is no, then that means we need to do something to address it.
So Ms. Waters, since you were on this led the ad hoc, didn't you look at best practices around the country? And I think we do. I'm working off the assumption that this plan included talking to people for whom this has actually shown positive results.
Right. So for one, Dr. Robert Tagorda, who we engaged to help us stand this up, founded and has run the Long Beach Promise program since its inception. Long Beach is kind of a district to watch in terms of moving students. And so we didn't just sort of pull this out of nowhere. We engaged experts and intend to continue doing so. Again, I know that we didn't go through the presentation this time, we went through it at the CAL, but the first year of the program is research and development and making sure that it does what it needs to do. And not only talking to folks outside the district, but talking to our students, our families that are experiencing the system and figuring out what it's going to take to get better results for after school.
But if I'm hearing you correctly, this didn't get written until we had a firm belief that a system of this nature has truly worked for students before, and then we created it for Charleston. So I think we have proof that these programs have had a positive impact.
Right.
Are there any further questions?
I just wanted to comment to you, Ms. Coates. I mean, it may have positive impact there. And that was the one thing I had, Long Beach geographically, business-wise, partner-wise, is different from Charleston County. And that's the only thing that I put out there. It may have worked for Long Beach, but when we go to who we're going to, or these partners, or the people that we feel like, that's what she's talking about, something that's actually going to work. I have no problem with anything that we do. The only problems I've had, even as a parent and as a board member, is we go outside to other places to find solutions to things that are happening in our backyard versus us trying to figure out something in our own backyard that's going to work for our children and our families that are right here in our backyard. That was it. Thank you.
So as a strong supporter of Achieve Charleston, and let me just first say thank you to the committee that's to Ms. Waters, who's heading this, and Ms. Hedrick is also a part of it, and Ms. Coakley is also part of the ad hoc committee. And as a strong supporter of the Achieve Charleston, I believe that we have an opportunity to reshape what education looks like in Charleston County. And this is bigger than just Long Beach, because it's just a model that we're using. But however, we recraft it to engage it to where it encompasses the entire stakeholders within the community, with also partnering with the mayors and the different entities like Boeing and Mercedes and Volvo. And so all of these individuals will be coming around the table to help us shape what Achieve Charleston will look like. So it goes beyond the walls of what you see here today presented in your packet. And I hope that at some point, as we continue to have these dialogues and the comments and suggestions that are being made, that we will be able to wrap ourselves around what Achieve Charleston look like, and you, board members, play a major role in helping to shape how we move this forward. But in order for us to get this started, it's going to take bringing people of the skill levels with best practices to help us navigate through putting together what this board has started in creating as a promise to the educational opportunities in Charleston County. And likewise, we are shaping a pathway that not only will be for kids going to college, but also to those that's going into the career field, the work field as well. So the goal is to not to have just one pathway of college, but also to equip every student that come through our doors and exit our building will have a pathway of assurance in either into the workforce or even into college. But we will say that you will be ready when you leave our buildings in order to be able to achieve either one of those pathways. So I hope that we will wrap our arms around and embrace Achieve Charleston as we move forward in the meetings to come ahead. And again, I just want to say thank you to the ad hoc committee. All right. Question to call right after Dr. French makes a question, or ask the question or make a statement.
I don't think that we have to decide on this today in order to make something really good happen with Achieve Charleston. What I really was hoping for is that we would take more time to get a more fleshed out proposal before we say it has to be done this way by hiring 5 people. That's really where I am. I feel a little constrained by the motion on the table. And I know there are possibly ways to defer a decision, but I'm not sure that that's the will of the body.
Okay, duly noted. Motion has been made and seconded. Rest that you please cast your vote electronically. Ms. Green, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, that motion passes. Item 8A. It's the information that was included in your packet for the FY 2022 Minority Business Utilization Plan. Was there any questions in reference to that plan that was submitted? Okay, item 8B is the capital projects report submitted as information in your packet. Are there any questions related to the capital projects report?
I do.
Ms. Copeland?
Mr. Burrow, do we know where D10 is right now in the planning sessions of forums?
Can you repeat the question, please, Ms. Coakley?
I'm sorry, D10, where are we at as far as planning sessions of forums? Do we know where we're at?
So it'll be in your board update this week.
Thank
We'll
you.
have an update in your board, in the superintendent's brief, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, item 8C is the 2021 tax anticipation note.
Move to approve.
All right, moved by Ms. Green, second by Ms. Coates.
Not
that
Miss
correct?
Green.
That was Kristen.
Dr. French.
Dr.
Oh,
French.
that was Dr. French. I'm sorry. Moved by Dr. French. I mean, sorry. No, so who made the motion?
I'll second her.
Okay, all right. Let's get it
Thank
right. All right. All right, Dr. French and Ms. Coates. Okay. Are there any questions? All right, hearing none, we ask that you please cast your vote.
Yes, I vote yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're being nice to me today, Ms. Green.
Be careful.
We're live. All right, that motion passes. Item 9A, the ESSA 3 advisory team.
I've got a motion. I'd like to move that we establish a small advisory team of 5 to 7 individuals who will report to the board at least once a semester for the board's ESSA 3 advisory team.
Properly moved and second. Are there any questions?
So when will the board select the members?
Policy BDE gives the chair the right to appoint members to this advisory committee
Will you appoint it from the?
from the list of names
the
that were
people-
submitted. Yes.
Okay.
All right, I ask that you please cast your vote.
Yes.
Ms. Waters, I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Green. You're ahead of me.
When do you
You're being
anticipate,
too nice today.
when do you anticipate naming the members of the team?
I'm sorry, say again.
When do you anticipate naming the members of the team?
I still didn't hear you.
When are you going to name the members of the team?
Oh, at the next meeting,
Okay.
yes. That's it?
Sorry.
Really, Ms. Oden?
I had my mouse on it, but I hadn't clicked.
Okay, that motion passes. Item 10A is the next upcoming meeting, which will be the committee of the whole on September 13th and the regular board meeting on September 27th. Dr. French.
I was wondering when we were going to have a workshop for our board governance work. For our board governance work that we voted to approve last month, when do you think that we're going, or I think we approved like earlier this month? When do you anticipate starting work on that?
So we have a schedule. That's a very good question, Dr. French. So we will give respondents to this week to kind of let you know where we are with it and the next steps. Okay. All right. All right, entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved.
This meeting is officially adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.